Section 1. The map with no roads. It arrived without fanfare. A plain brown envelope, tucked amidst the usual bills and junk mail. No return address, no sender's name, just your own scrawled across the front in a hand you didn't recognize. Curiosity, a dangerous companion, pricked at you. Inside, nestled between two stiff pieces of cardboard, was a map. It's not a modern, glossy, GPS-friendly map, but something ancient, almost alive. It was hand-drawn, the paper thick and yellowed, smelling faintly of damp earth and something else. Something sweet and cloying, like decaying magnolias. The lines were intricate, etched with a precision that spoke of obsessive care, yet the details were maddeningly vague. Rivers snaked where roads should be, and landmarks were depicted with a child's whimsical artistry. A crooked tree, a leaning shack, a single unblinking eye. At the bottom, in faded, elegant script, a name. Your Aunt Alara. You'd never met an Aunt Alara. You weren't even sure you had an Aunt Alara. Your family tree, as far as you knew, was a rather barren affair. The map, however, insisted on her existence. It was less a guide and more a riddle, a labyrinth of ink and paper. The central feature was a sprawling, tangled mass labeled simply the Bayou. It was a place you'd only ever seen in documentaries, a humid, verdant expanse of water and cypress knees, teeming with unseen life. The map's Bayou was different, pulsed with an unsettling energy, the lines of its waterways twisting and converging in impossible ways, like veins in a diseased heart. There were no roads, not a single one, just a network of waterways, some wide and languid, others narrow and choked with vegetation, and scattered throughout tiny, almost imperceptible symbols, a half-submerged cross, single skeletal hand reaching from the water, a faint, almost invisible shimmer. These weren't landmarks you could Google. These were whispers, secrets etched onto paper. You spent days poring over it, the map becoming a living entity in your hands. The scent of damp earth grew stronger, and sometimes, when the house was quiet, you could almost hear the faint croak of a frog, the distant buzz of insects, the gentle lapping of water. You dismissed it as imagination, a trick of the mind, but the map's pull was undeniable. It spoke of a place forgotten, a place where the veil between worlds was thin, a place that beckoned with a dark, irresistible allure. You tried to find information about Aunt Alara, but your searches yielded nothing. No birth records, no death certificates, no family connections. It was as if she existed only within the confines of this strange, unsettling map. The more you studied the map, the more you realized its inherent contradiction. It was a map designed not to guide, but to mislead. The scale was inconsistent, the directions warped. A journey that appeared short on paper could stretch for miles, and a seemingly impassable barrier might be a mere illusion. It was a map that demanded intuition, not logic. It demanded a surrender to the unknown, a willingness to be lost. And despite the growing unease, a strange fascination took root. The Bayou, as depicted on the map, was not just a geographical location, it was a state of being, a place where the rules of the ordinary world dissolved. One evening, as twilight bled across the sky, painting the clouds in hues of bruised purple and angry orange, you noticed something new on the map. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer, like a drop of water on oil, had appeared over a small, unnamed island deep within the bayou. It wasn't ink, it was something else, something that seemed to glow with an inner light. You touched it, and a jolt, cold and electric, shot through your fingertips. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying magnolias. A whisper, faint and indistinct, brushed against your ear, a sound like rustling leaves or distant water. You snatched your hand back, heart pounding, but the shimmer remained, a silent invitation. That night, sleep was a distant dream. The map lay open on your bedside table, the shimmer a beacon in the darkness. You found yourself tracing the convoluted waterways, your finger hovering over the glowing island. It was a place of no return, you knew, a place that would swallow you whole. Yet, the thought of not going, of not unraveling the mystery of Aunt Alara and her impossible map, was unbearable. It was as if the map had imprinted itself on your very soul, a silent command to embark on a journey into the heart of darkness. The Bayou, once a distant, abstract concept, had become a tangible presence, a living, breathing entity that called to you from the depths of the paper. The next morning, the decision was made. You packed a small bag, a few essentials, and the map. The world outside your window seemed dull, muted, as if waiting for you to step into the vibrant, terrifying reality of the bayou. You felt a strange sense of anticipation, a thrill of fear and excitement. This wasn't just a trip. It was a pilgrimage, a descent into the unknown. The map, with its impossible roads and whispering secrets, was your only guide. And as you stepped out of your familiar world, leaving behind the comfort of the known, you couldn't shake the feeling that you weren't just going to the bayou. You were going to meet it to become a part of its ancient, unsettling tapestry. The journey had begun, not with a single step, but with the unfolding of a map that was utterly, terrifyingly wrong. The journey to Louisiana was a blur of highways and endless flat landscapes. Each mile brought you closer to the humid embrace of the South, to the promise of the bayou. The map tucked safely in your bag seemed to hum with a low, resonant energy. You felt its presence, a constant, subtle pressure against your skin. As you drove deeper into the state, the air grew thick with moisture, the scent of pine giving way to something richer, more primal. The smell of stagnant water, of lush vegetation, of life and decay intertwined. The landscape flattened, giving way to endless stretches of marshland, punctuated by the skeletal forms of cypress trees draped in Spanish moss. It was a landscape that felt ancient, untamed, a place where time moved at a different pace. You arrived at the edge of what the map vaguely indicated as the nearest town, a place so small it barely registered on any modern atlas. It was a collection of weathered wooden houses, their paint peeling, their porches sagging. The streets were unpaved, dusty, and silent. A few stray dogs roamed freely, their ribs showing, their eyes wary. There were no signs, no welcoming committees, no indication that this was a place where people lived. It felt like a ghost town, a place forgotten by the world. Yet the map had led you here, to this desolate outpost, to the very edge of the bayou. You parked your car, the engine ticking as it cooled, the silence of the town pressing in on you. It was a silence that wasn't empty, but full of unseen eyes, of unheard whispers. As you stepped out of the car, the humidity enveloped you, a thick, suffocating blanket. The air was heavy with the scent of mud and water, a scent that was both alien and strangely familiar. You looked at the map again, the hand-drawn lines seeming to shift and writhe in the dim light. The town, as depicted on the map, was even more rudimentary, a mere smudge of ink at the edge of the vast green expanse. It was a place of transition, a gateway to the true destination. You walked down the main street, your footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. A few curtains twitched in the windows of the houses, but no one emerged. It was as if the residents were holding their breath, waiting for you to pass, to disappear into the bayou. You found a small, dilapidated general store, its wooden porch groaning under your weight. Inside, the air was cool and musty, smelling of dust and old spices. An elderly woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, sat behind the counter, her eyes dark and knowing, fixed on you. She didn't speak, didn't offer a greeting, just watched. You felt a prickle of unease, a sense of being scrutinized, of being weighed and measured. You bought a bottle of water, the transaction conducted in silence, her gaze never leaving you. As you turned to leave, she finally spoke, her voice a low, raspy whisper, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "The bayou takes what it wants," she said, her eyes glinting in the dim light, "and it always wants more. Don't." You didn't reply, just nodded, a chill running down your spine. Her words, a warning or a prophecy, echoed in your mind as you stepped back into the oppressive heat. Back in your car, you consulted the map once more. The glowing shimmer on the unnamed island seemed to pulse with a renewed intensity, a silent siren call. The general store, the silent town, the old woman's ominous words. They were all part of the prelude. The slow, deliberate drawing of the curtain. The true horror you knew lay deeper, within the tangled embrace of the bayou. The map, once a mere curiosity, had become a destiny. You started the car, the engine roaring to life, a defiant sound in the quiet town. You were ready to face whatever secrets the bayou held, whatever horrors Aunt Alara had left for you. The road, or rather, the lack thereof, stretched before you, a watery path into the heart of the unknown. And as you drove towards the shimmering expanse, you knew, with a chilling certainty, that you were not just entering the bayou. You were entering a nightmare, a waking dream from which there might be no escape. The map, with its impossible directions and its silent promises, had led you home to a place you never knew existed, a place that had been waiting for you all along. Section 2. The boat that wasn't tied. Down. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of cypress and stagnant water, a perfume unique to the Louisiana Bayou. You stood on the rickety wooden dock, the sun, a molten disk melting into the horizon, melting the sky in hues of bruised purple and angry orange. The map clutched in your hand felt warm, almost alive, its faint shimmer now a steady pulse. It had led you here to a small, isolated inlet, where a single boat bobbed gently in the murky water. It was a flat-bottomed skiff, old and weathered, its paint peeling like sunburnt skin. There were no ropes, no chains, no discernible way it was tied down. Yet it remained, rocking with a rhythmic, almost hypnotic sway, as if waiting for you. A shiver, not of cold, but of something far more primal, traced its way up your spine. This wasn't just a boat, it was an invitation, a silent challenge. The bayou, in its infinite ancient wisdom, had provided. You stepped onto the dock, the wood groaning under your weight, a symphony of creaks and whispers. The boat, as if sensing your presence, nudged closer, its worn hull brushing against the dock with a soft, almost caressing sound. It was an unnerving intimacy, a silent acknowledgement of your arrival. You hesitated, your rational mind screaming warnings. But the map's pull was too strong, the allure of the unknown too potent. With a deep breath, you stepped into the skiff. The wood felt smooth beneath your hand, worn by countless journeys, by countless hands. It was surprisingly stable, a testament to its sturdy construction, or perhaps to something else entirely. You settled into the single wooden seat, the map spread out before you, its glowing shimmer illuminating the intricate waterways. The boat, without any discernible effort on your part, began to drift. It wasn't a forceful movement, but a gentle, almost imperceptible glide, as if guided by an unseen current, by an unseen hand. The dock receded, the shore blurring into a verdant wall of cypress and mangrove. The silence of the bayou was profound, broken only by the gentle lapping of water against the hull, the distant croak of a frog, the buzz of unseen insects. It was a silence that wasn't empty, but filled with 1,000 tiny sounds, 1,000 unseen presences. You felt a sense of being watched, of being enveloped by something vast and ancient. The air grew cooler, the twilight deepening, casting long, distorted shadows across the water. The Spanish moss, hanging like spectral beards from the cypress trees, seemed to writhe and sway, their forms shifting, taking on grotesque shapes in the fading light. As the boat glided deeper into the bayou, the waterways narrowed, the cypress trees closing in, their gnarled roots reaching into the murky water like skeletal fingers. The air grew heavier, the scent of decaying magnolias more potent, almost suffocating. The map's shimmer intensified, casting an ethereal glow on the water, revealing glimpses of things beneath the surface. Dark, sinuous shapes, fleeting shadows, eyes that seemed to gleam in the depths. You told yourself it was just the light, just your imagination, but a cold dread began to coil in your stomach. The boat continued its silent journey, navigating the labyrinthine waterways with an uncanny precision. It seemed to know where it was going, a silent, sentient guide. You tried to steer, to exert some control, but the paddle felt alien in your hands, useless against the boat's determined will. It was as if you were merely a passenger, an observer in your own journey. The realization was both terrifying and strangely liberating. You had surrendered to the bayou, to the map, to the unseen forces that guided your path. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time seemed to lose all meaning in the heart of the bayou. The moon, a sliver of bone in the inky sky, cast a faint ghostly light on the water. The sounds of the bayou grew louder, more insistent. The guttural roar of an alligator, piercing cry of a night bird, the rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. And beneath it all, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper, a sound that seemed to emanate from the water itself, from the very air around you. It was a sound that spoke of ancient secrets, of forgotten tragedies, of things that lurked just beyond the veil of perception. You reached a clearing, a small, circular pool of water surrounded by towering cypress trees. The air here was still, heavy, almost suffocating. The map's shimmer pulsed with a blinding intensity, illuminating a small, almost invisible island in the center of the clearing. It was the island, you realized, the one marked with the glowing shimmer on the map. The boat, as if reaching its destination, gently nudged against the muddy bank. You stepped out, your feet sinking into the soft, yielding earth. The island was small, barely more than a mound of earth, but it radiated an unsettling energy, a palpable sense of something ancient and powerful. As you stood on the island, the boat, which had carried you so faithfully, began to drift away, slowly receding into the darkness. Swallowed by the shadows of the cypress trees, it was leaving you, abandoning you to the embrace of the bayou. A wave of panic washed over you, but it was quickly replaced by a strange sense of acceptance. This was your destiny, your journey. The boat had served its purpose, delivering you to the heart of the mystery. You were alone now, truly alone, in the heart of the bayou, with only the map and its unsettling secrets for company. The island itself was unremarkable, a tangle of roots and mud, but as you looked closer, you noticed something glinting in the moonlight. It was a small, tarnished silver locket, half buried in the mud. You picked it up, your fingers trembling. It was cold to the touch, and as you opened it, a faint, almost imperceptible image flickered within. A woman's face, her eyes dark and knowing, her lips curved in a faint, unsettling smile. It was Aunt Alara, you knew, though you had no way of knowing how. Her eyes, even in the faded image, seemed to bore into your soul, a silent invitation, a silent warning. You looked up, the bayou stretching out before you, a vast dark expanse of water and shadows. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, a chorus of unseen voices. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The boat that wasn't tied down had brought you here, to this place of no return, to the heart of the American horror. And as the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting its ghostly light on the water, you knew with a chilling certainty that your journey had only just begun. But the bayou had embraced you, and it would not let you go. Not now, not ever. Section 3. Locals who pretend you're not there. The sun. A malevolent eye in the humid sky beat down on the small, unnamed town. You had returned somehow from the island, the locket clutched tight in your hand, its cold metal a constant reminder of Aunt Alara's unsettling gaze. The boat, the one that wasn't tied down, was gone, vanished as if it had never existed. You were on foot now, the muddy path leading you back to the cluster of dilapidated houses that constituted civilization, or what passed for it, in this forgotten corner of Louisiana. The air was thick with the buzzing of unseen insects, the distant croak of frogs, and the pervasive, cloying scent of decaying magnolias. It was a scent that had begun to cling to you, a subtle, unsettling perfume that seemed to mark you as an outsider, or perhaps as something else entirely. As you walked, you noticed them. Figures in the shadows of porches, behind the grimy windows of the general store. Their faces obscured by the dim light, by the Spanish moss that hung like shrouds from the ancient oak trees. They were the locals, the inhabitants of this forgotten place. You tried to meet their gaze, to offer a polite nod, a tentative smile, but their eyes, when they met yours, slid past, like water over polished stone. It was as if you were transparent, a ghost in their midst. They saw you, you knew they did, but their recognition was fleeting, their attention already drifting, as if you were already fading, dissolving into the humid air. This wasn't avoidance. It was something far more unsettling. It was a deliberate, almost ritualistic ignoring. A collective agreement to pretend you weren't there, to deny your very presence. You tried to speak, to ask for directions, for a glass of water, for anything that would elicit a response, a flicker of acknowledgement. But your words seemed to dissipate in the heavy air, unheard, unheeded. They continued their mundane tasks, sweeping porches, mending fishing nets. Their movements slow and deliberate, as if time itself had slowed to a crawl in this forgotten place. Their faces were impassive, their expressions unreadable, like masks carved from ancient wood. You felt a growing sense of unease, a chilling realization that you were not just an outsider, but an anomaly, a disruption in their carefully constructed reality. It was as if your presence threatened to unravel the delicate fabric of their existence, and their only defense was to deny it, to pretend you didn't exist. You walked past a group of men mending a fishing net, their hands calloused and strong, their faces weathered by sun and time. You stopped directly in front of them and cleared your throat. One of them, an old man with eyes like polished stones, looked directly at you, his gaze passing through you as if you were made of smoke. He continued to mend his net, his fingers moving with practiced ease, his lips moving in a silent guttural murmur. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the rhythmic click of the needles against the net. You stood there for what felt like an eternity, a statue in a world that refused to acknowledge your existence. The sun beat down, the humidity pressed in, and the scent of decaying magnolias grew stronger, almost suffocating. You felt a strange lightness, a sense of disembodiment, as if you were indeed fading, becoming less and less real with each passing moment. It was a terrifying sensation, a slow, insidious erasure of your very being. You moved on, the weight of their unspoken dismissal pressing down on you. You passed a woman hanging laundry, her movements stiff and deliberate. You tried to catch her eye, to offer a smile, but her gaze remained fixed on the task at hand, her face a blank canvas. It was as if you were a disturbance in the air, a ripple in the water, something to be ignored, to be smoothed over. The children, when you saw them, were the most unsettling. Their eyes, wide and unblinking, followed your every move, but their faces remained impassive, their lips sealed. They didn't play, didn't laugh, didn't cry. They simply watched, their silence more unnerving than any scream. You found yourself back at the general store, the same elderly woman behind the counter, her dark eyes fixed on some unseen point beyond the dusty shelves. You tried again, your voice a little louder this time, a little more insistent. "Excuse me," you said. "I was wondering if you could tell me where I might find a place to stay for the night?" Her eyes, dark and knowing, flickered towards you, but again, they slid past, focusing on the empty space beside you. She continued to polish a tarnished silver locket, her movements slow and deliberate, her lips moving in a silent, guttural murmur. It was the same locket, you realized with a jolt. The one you had found on the island, the one with Aunt Alara's unsettling gaze. A cold dread began to coil in your stomach. This wasn't just a town, it was a stage, and you were an unwanted performer. Their pretense, their deliberate ignoring, was a form of psychological warfare, a subtle, insidious way of eroding your sanity. You felt the edges of your reality blurring, the lines between what was real and what was imagined beginning to fray. Was it you who was fading? Or was it them who were so deeply entrenched in their own reality that they could no longer perceive anything outside of it? You stumbled out of the store, the humid air, a welcome relief after the oppressive silence within. You looked back, and through the grimy window, you saw the old woman. Her eyes still fixed on the empty space beside you, her lips still moving in that silent, guttural murmur. Chill ran down your spine. They weren't just pretending you weren't there. They were actively willing you out of existence. They were trying to make you disappear, to erase your presence from their world. As twilight began to bleed across the sky, painting the clouds in hues of bruised purple, an angry orange, you found yourself at the edge of the town, the dense green wall of the bayou looming before you. The whispers, faint at first, grew louder, more insistent. A chorus of unseen voices calling to you from the depths of the swamp. It was a sound that spoke of ancient secrets, of forgotten tragedies, of things that lurked just beyond the veil of perception. The bayou, you realized, was not ignoring you. It was welcoming you, drawing you deeper into its embrace. It was a terrifying thought, but also, strangely, a comforting one. At least something acknowledged your existence. You looked back at the town, at the silent, shadowed houses, at the figures who pretended you weren't there. They were a barrier, a last line of defense against the true horrors of the bayou. But their defense was failing. You were already fading, already dissolving into the humid air, becoming less and less real with each passing moment. The bayou was calling, and you, an unwilling but inexorable participant, were answering. The locket, still clutched in your hand, felt heavier now, its cold metal, a tangible link to the unseen forces that guided your path. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The locals might pretend you weren't there, but the bayou knew, and it was waiting. Section 4. The fisherman who hears through the water. The bayou. A vast green labyrinth stretched before you, its humid breath a constant presence against your skin. You had left the town, its silent, unseeing inhabitants behind. The locket, still clutched in your hand, felt like a talisman, a connection to the unseen forces that had drawn you here. The map, now a familiar weight in your pocket, pulsed with a faint internal light, guiding you deeper into the heart of the swamp. The whispers, once faint and indistinct, had grown louder, a chorus of unseen voices that seemed to emanate from the very air around you. From the rustling leaves, from the gentle lapping of water against unseen banks. You walked for what felt like hours, the path narrowing, becoming little more than a deer trail, overgrown with tangled vines and thorny bushes. The cypress trees, their gnarled roots reaching into the murky water like skeletal fingers, grew denser, their Spanish moss beards swaying in the imperceptible breeze. The air was thick with the scent of mud and decaying vegetation, a primal aroma that spoke of life and death intertwined. You were alone, truly alone, in the heart of the bayou, surrounded by a silence that was not empty, but filled with 1,000 tiny sounds, 1,000 unseen presences. Then, through a break in the dense foliage, you saw him. An old man, his back to you, sitting in a small, flat-bottomed pirogue, his fishing line cast into the murky water. He was an anachronism, a figure from another time. His clothes faded and worn, his skin tanned and leathery from years spent under the bayou sun. He seemed to be part of the landscape, as ancient and rooted as the cypress trees themselves. You hesitated, unsure whether to approach, remembering the unsettling silence of the townspeople. But something about him, a quiet stillness, drew you forward. As you drew closer, you noticed that he wasn't just fishing. He was listening. His head was tilted, his eyes closed, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. He seemed to be in a trance, communing with something unseen, unheard by ordinary ears. You cleared your throat, a small, tentative sound in the vast silence. His eyes opened, slowly revealing irises the color of murky bayou water, deep and ancient. He didn't startle, didn't flinch, just turned his head, his gaze settling on you with an unnerving calm. "You hear it, don't you?" he said, his voice a low, gravelly whisper, like stones tumbling in a riverbed. It was the first human voice you had heard that acknowledged your presence, and it sent a strange jolt through you. "The swamp talks back," he continued, his gaze unwavering, "if you're quiet long enough." He gestured to the water with his chin, a subtle movement. "Tell stories, old stories, stories of what was and what will be." You found yourself sitting on the bank beside him, the locket still warm in your hand. You told him about the map, about Aunt Ilara, about the boat that wasn't tied down, about the townspeople who pretended you weren't there. He listened, his eyes closed again, a faint smile playing on his lips. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer judgment, just absorbed your words, as if they were just another part of the bayou's endless narrative. When you finished, he opened his eyes, his gaze piercing. "Ilara," he murmured, the name a soft sigh on his lips. "She was a listener. Like me, like you now." He picked up a small, smooth stone from the bottom of his pirogue, turning it over and over in his calloused fingers. "The bayou has many voices. Some are gentle, like the wind through the reeds. Some are fierce, like the alligator's roar. And some are whispers from the deep, from things that sleep beneath the mud." He cast his line again, the plop of the sinker, a surprisingly loud sound in the stillness. "The map," he said, without opening his eyes. "It's a key. But a key to what only the bayou knows. It will show you what it wants you to see, tell you what it wants you to hear. But you must be quiet, very quiet. And you must listen, not with your ears, but with your soul." You asked him about the whispers, the ones you had been hearing since you arrived. He nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. They are the voices of the lost, he said, the ones who came before, the ones who sought what you seek. Some found it. Some became part of the Bayou song. He paused, his gaze fixed on the shimmering surface of the water. They are not always kind, these voices. They can lure you, deceive you, lead you astray. But they can also guide you if you learn to discern their truth. He spoke of the Bayou as a living entity, a sentient being with a memory as vast and deep as its waters. He spoke of ancient spirits, of forgotten rituals, of a time when the line between the living and the dead was thin, almost non-existent. He spoke of the mud, of its ability to preserve, to remember, to hold on to the echoes of what had passed. And as he spoke, you felt a strange sense of recognition, as if he was articulating something you had always known, but had never been able to put into words. The Bayou, he said, his voice barely a whisper, it's a mirror. It reflects what's inside you, fears, your desires, your hidden truths. Be careful what you seek, for you might find it. Once you find it, you can never unsee it, never unhear it. He reeled in his line, a small silver fish wriggling on the hook. He unhooked it gently, releasing it back into the water. Some things are best left undisturbed, he said, his gaze meeting yours. But some things demand to be found. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, he stood up, his movements slow but fluid. The night is when the Bayou truly speaks, he said, when the veil is thinnest. Listen closely. It will tell you what you need to know. He pushed his pirogue away from the bank, a silent spectral figure disappearing into the deepening shadows. You watched him go, a profound sense of awe and unease settling over you. He was a guardian, a keeper of secrets, a voice from the ancient past. And he had given you a warning, a cryptic message that resonated deep within your soul. You were alone again, but not truly. The Bayou was alive around you, its whispers growing louder, more insistent. You closed your eyes, listening, not with your ears, but with your soul, just as the old fisherman had instructed. And in the depths of the silence you heard it. A faint rhythmic thumping, a sound that seemed to come from beneath the water, from the very heart of the Bayou. It was a sound that was both terrifying and strangely alluring. A beat that resonated with the pulsing shimmer of the map in your pocket. The fisherman had opened your ears, and now the Bayou was beginning to sing its true song, and you, a willing listener, were ready to hear it. Section 5. Footsteps, where the water's deepest, the rhythmic thumping. Faint at first, grew steadily louder, a primal beat resonating from the murky depths of the Bayou. It was a sound that defied logic, a sound that spoke of something ancient and powerful stirring beneath the surface. You stood on the muddy bank, the locket a cold weight in your hand. The map's shimmer a pulsating beacon in the deepening twilight. The old fisherman's words echoed in your mind. The Bayou truly speaks, when the veil is thinnest. And now it was speaking in a language of thumps and whispers, a language that chilled you to the bone. You had found a small, abandoned skiff, half submerged in the shallows, its paint long since peeled away, its hull riddled with holes. It was a derelict, a ghost of a boat, yet something compelled you to climb in. Perhaps it was the insistent thumping, drawing you closer. Or perhaps it was the growing conviction that your journey was no longer your own, but dictated by the Bayou itself. Pushed off from the bank with a broken oar, the water swirling around the decaying wood. The scent of mud and decay rising to meet you. The thumping intensified as you drifted, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to travel through the water, through the very hull of the skiff, and into your bones. It was a heavy, deliberate sound, like giant footsteps walking on the bottom of the Bayou. You peered into the dark water, but saw nothing. Only the distorted reflections of the cypress trees and the inky blackness of the depths. Yet you felt a presence, a vast, unseen entity moving beneath you, its passage marked by the rhythmic thudding. The whispers, too, grew louder, a cacophony of indistinct voices that seemed to emanate from all around you. From the Spanish moss, from the gnarled roots of the cypress trees, from the very air itself, were not words you could understand, but a jumble of sounds, of sighs and moans, of ancient laments and guttural pronouncements. They swirled around you, a vortex of sound that threatened to overwhelm your senses, to drag you down into the madness of the bayou. Suddenly, the thumping stopped. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the sound itself, a suffocating void that pressed in on you from all sides. You held your breath, your heart pounding in your chest, listening, waiting. And then a ripple, a slow, deliberate disturbance on the surface of the water, directly beneath the skiff. It wasn't the movement of a fish or a turtle or even an alligator. It was too large, too purposeful. It was as if something vast and unseen was pushing against the bottom of your boat, testing its strength, testing your resolve. The skiff rocked violently, throwing you off balance. You scrambled to regain your footing, your eyes wide with terror, fixed on the disturbed water. A dark shape, immense and indistinct, began to emerge from the depths, a shadow against the deeper shadows of the bayou. It was not a creature you recognized, not an animal from any natural history book. It was something else, something ancient and primordial, something that belonged to a time before time. Then you saw them.
Tiny footsteps.
Not the webbed feet of an alligator or the splayed toes of a frog, but distinct, almost human-like imprints, pressed into the soft mud at the bottom of the bayou. They were enormous, far larger than any human foot, and they seemed to be walking slowly and deliberately beneath your boat. Each step sent a tremor through the water, a silent, powerful vibration that resonated with the thumping you had heard earlier.
Down.
It was the source of the sound, the unseen walker in the depths. A cold dread, deeper than any you had ever known, settled over you. This was not a dream, not a hallucination. This was real. There was something walking beneath your boat, something that was not fish, not animal, but something else entirely. Something that had been slumbering in the deepest parts of the bayou, and now, for reasons unknown, had awakened. And it was walking towards you, or perhaps with you, guiding you deeper into its watery domain. The skiff began to move again, not drifting, but propelled forward by an unseen force. You looked down, and through the murky water, you could still see the faint outlines of the footsteps, moving in tandem with your boat. It was as if you were being led, pulled along by an invisible tether, deeper and deeper into the heart of the bayou, into the realm of the unseen walker. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, and for a fleeting moment, you thought you heard your name, whispered from the depths, a cold, wet sound that sent shivers down your spine. The air grew heavy, thick with an unnatural chill, despite the oppressive humidity. The Spanish moss, hanging from the cypress trees, seemed to writhe and twist, their forms taking on grotesque shapes in the fading light. The bayou, once a place of natural beauty, had transformed into a landscape of dread, a living nightmare. And you, a helpless passenger in a derelict skiff, were being carried deeper into its embrace, towards a destination unknown, towards a confrontation with the unseen. As the last sliver of sunlight vanished below the horizon, plunging the bayou into an inky blackness, the footsteps beneath your boat grew more insistent, more powerful. The skiff bucked and swayed, threatening to capsize. You clung to the sides, your knuckles white, your breath coming in ragged gasps. The whispers reached a fever pitch, a chorus of ancient voices screaming in your ears. And then, a sound unlike any you had ever heard. A deep, guttural sigh, a sound of immense age and profound weariness, seemed to emanate from the water directly beneath you. It was the breath of the unseen walker, exhaling into the water, into your very soul. The skiff suddenly lurched, and you were thrown forward, landing with a splash in the shallow water. You scrambled to your feet, soaked and trembling, your eyes scanning the darkness. The skiff was gone, swallowed by the murky depths. You were alone, standing in the shallows, the water cold against your skin. The thumping had stopped, the whispers had faded, replaced by an eerie silence, but you knew it wasn't over. The unseen walker was still there, lurking in the depths, its presence a palpable weight in the darkness. You had felt its breath, heard its footsteps. And now you were truly in its domain. The bayou had claimed you, and the journey into its deepest horrors had only just begun. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of its ancient, terrifying tapestry, a pawn in a game you barely understood. And as you stood there, shivering in the cold, dark water, you knew, with a chilling certainty, that the Bayou would not let you go. Not now. Not ever. Section 6. The house that breathed when you slept the cold. Murky water of the Bayou clung to your clothes, a constant reminder of the unseen presence that had walked beneath your boat. You had stumbled through the dense undergrowth, guided by the faint, pulsating shimmer of the map in your pocket, till you saw it. A raised wooden shack perched precariously on stilts, its weathered planks a ghostly white in the moonlight. It was the kind of place you'd only ever seen in nightmares, a structure that seemed to defy gravity, held together by sheer will and the oppressive humidity. Yet it was shelter, a temporary reprieve from the suffocating embrace of the Bayou, and you, exhausted and trembling, stumbled towards it. The front door, a warped slab of wood, hung ajar, creaking a mournful welcome in the imperceptible breeze. You pushed it open, the sound echoing in the oppressive silence. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint cloying scent of decay, a smell that was becoming increasingly familiar. The single room was sparsely furnished, a rickety table, 2 chairs, and a narrow cot in the corner. Its mattress stained and sagging, a thin layer of grime covered everything, a testament to the shack's long abandonment. But as you stepped inside, you felt a strange sense of familiarity, a prickle of recognition that sent a shiver down your spine. You lit a match, the flickering flame casting dancing shadows on the walls. The locket, still clutched in your hand, seemed to pulse with a faint internal light, mirroring the map's shimmer. You placed it on the table, its cold metal a stark contrast to the warm glow of the match. As your eyes adjusted to the dim light, you noticed something else, a faint, almost imperceptible stain on the floorboards near the cot. It was dark, almost black, and seemed to spread like a slow-growing fungus across the worn wood. You knelt, your fingers tracing its outline, and felt a strange, sticky residue. It was old, very old, but still wet. Sleep, when it finally came, was a fitful, restless affair. The cot groaned under your weight, its springs protesting with every shift. The sounds of the Bayou, once a distant hum, now seemed to press in on you, a symphony of unseen creatures and unheard whispers. You tossed and turned, your mind replaying the events of the day, the unseeing townspeople, the cryptic fisherman, the unseen walker beneath the water. Each image, each sound was amplified in the darkness, twisting into grotesque forms that danced at the edge of your consciousness. Then, at precisely 3:33 a.m., it began. A faint rhythmic pulse emanating from beneath the floorboards. It was a soft, almost imperceptible throb, like a slow, steady heartbeat. You sat up, your senses on high alert, listening. The sound was unmistakable, a living, breathing presence beneath the shack. It wasn't the creaking of old wood or the settling of the house. It was something else, something organic, something alive. The floorboards beneath your feet seemed to rise and fall with each pulse, a slow, deliberate breath. You slid off the cot, your bare feet cold against the pulsing wood. You knelt, pressing your ear to the floor, listening intently. The sound was louder now, a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated through your entire body. It was the sound of something vast and ancient, something that had been sleeping beneath the shack for a very long time, and was now slowly, deliberately, awakening. The scent of decay grew stronger, mixed with something else, something sweet and cloying like decaying magnolias and blood. You scrambled to your feet, your heart pounding in your chest. You looked around the room, your eyes wide with terror, searching for an escape, a way out. But there was nowhere to go. The windows were boarded up, the door a warped slab of wood that seemed to mock your attempts to open it. You were trapped, alone in a house that breathed, a house that was alive, a house that was slowly, inexorably, drawing you into its embrace. The pulsing intensified, the floorboards rising and falling with a greater urgency, like the chest of a dying beast. The entire shack seemed to groan and creak, its timbers protesting against the unseen force that animated it. The air grew heavy, thick with an oppressive presence, a palpable sense of dread that pressed in on you from all sides. The whispers, too, returned, cacophony of indistinct voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls, from the very air itself. They were not words you could understand, but a jumble of sounds, of sighs and moans, of ancient laments and guttural pronouncements. They swirled around you, a vortex of sound that threatened to overwhelm your senses, to drag you down into the madness of the bayou. You backed away from the pulsing floorboards, pressing yourself against the far wall, your eyes fixed on the stain. It seemed to be growing, spreading across the wood, its dark tendrils reaching out, like grasping fingers. You felt a strange magnetic pull, a morbid fascination that drew you closer, despite your terror. It was as if the house was calling to you, beckoning you to surrender, to become a part of its ancient, unsettling tapestry. As the pulsing reached a crescendo, the floorboards began to crack, thin fissures appearing in the worn wood, like veins on an ancient hand. A faint, sickly light, a phosphorescent green, began to seep through the cracks, illuminating the darkness beneath the shack. You knelt again, your eyes fixed on the glowing fissures, and through them, you saw it. Not a crawlspace, not a foundation, but a vast, dark expanse, filled with a swirling, viscous liquid. And in the center of it all, a single, enormous eye, dark and ancient, slowly opening, its gaze fixed on you. The eye was not an animal's eye, not a human's eye. It was something else, something primordial, something that belonged to a time before time. It pulsed with the same rhythmic beat as the floorboards, its gaze a cold, unblinking stare that seemed to pierce through your very soul. You felt a wave of nausea, a dizzying sensation that threatened to overwhelm you. The scent of decay, of magnolias and blood, grew stronger, almost suffocating. The whispers, too, intensified, and for a fleeting moment, you thought you heard a name, whispered from the depths, a cold, wet sound that sent shivers down your spine. Your name. You scrambled back, your mind screaming in protest, but it was too late. The eye had seen you, had acknowledged your presence. The house, the bayou, Aunt Alara, they were all connected, all part of a vast, ancient network of horror. The shack was not just breathing, it was alive, a living, sentient entity that had been waiting for you, waiting to draw you into its embrace. And as the green light pulsed and the eye stared, you knew, with a chilling certainty, that you were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The house that breathed when you slept had claimed you, and the journey into its deepest horrors had only just begun. You were trapped, alone in a nightmare, from which there might be no escape. Not now, not ever. Section 7. Letters written in two handwritings. The shack. Once a refuge had become a cage, its breathing floorboards a constant, unsettling reminder of the unseen horror beneath. You had spent the rest of the night huddled in a corner, the locket clutched tight, the map's shimmer a faint, flickering comfort in the oppressive darkness. The eye beneath the floorboards had closed, its phosphorescent glow fading with the dawn. But its image was seared into your mind, a chilling testament to the bayou's hidden depths. The scent of decay, of magnolias and blood, still lingered in the air, a phantom presence that clung to your clothes, to your skin. As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the grimy windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the stale air, you noticed it. A small wooden chest tucked away in a shadowy corner of the room, almost hidden by a pile of discarded fishing nets. It was old, its wood warped and splintered, its brass hinges tarnished with age. A faint, almost imperceptible scent of lavender and old paper emanated from it, a stark contrast to the pervasive stench of the bayou. Curiosity, a dangerous companion, once again pricked at you. You knelt, your fingers tracing the intricate carvings on its lid. A twisted cypress tree, coiled snake, a single unblinking eye, the same eye you had seen beneath the floorboards. A shiver ran down your spine. Its chest, you realized, was connected to the house, to the bayou, to Aunt Alara. With trembling hands, you lifted the lid. Inside, nestled amongst dried herbs and faded ribbons, was a journal. Not a modern, mass-produced journal, but a handmade book, its cover bound in worn leather, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. You opened it, the pages rustling like dry leaves. The first few entries were written in a delicate, flowing script, the ink faded but still legible. They spoke of a woman named Alara, of her arrival in the bayou, her fascination with its ancient secrets, its hidden powers. She wrote of the beauty of the landscape, The vibrant life, the oppressive humidity, the strange, unsettling silence. She wrote of the locals, their wary eyes, their whispered warnings. It was her voice, you realized, the voice of Aunt Alara, a voice you had only ever heard in the cryptic whispers of the bayou. But then the handwriting changed. Abruptly, mid-sentence, mid-thought, the delicate script gave way to a bolder, more erratic hand, the ink darker, almost black. The tone shifted too, from curious observation to a growing sense of unease, of fear, of something else, something predatory. The entries became disjointed, fragmented, filled with cryptic references to the whispers, the deep, the hunger. It was as if another hand, another mind had taken over, weaving its own narrative into Elaraz. You read on, a growing sense of dread coiling in your stomach. The entries spoke of Alara's attempts to understand the bayou, to commune with its spirits, to unlock its secrets. But the second hand, the darker hand, seemed to be documenting a different kind of communion. A forced possession, a slow, insidious transformation. It wrote of the bayou's demands, its insatiable appetite, its desire to consume, to absorb, to become one with all that entered its embrace. It wrote of the price of knowledge, the cost of power, the sacrifice required to truly understand the bayou's ancient truths. One entry written in the darker hand sent a chill down your spine. She seeks the truth, but the truth is a hungry thing. It will devour her, as it devours all who dare to look too closely. Another, her voice fades, replaced by the chorus. Soon she will be one of us, one with the mud, one with the whispers. The words were chilling, a direct threat, a prophecy of your own fate. You looked at the locket, at Aunt Alara's faded image, her eyes dark and knowing, her lips curved in that unsettling smile. Was this what had happened to her? Had she, too, been consumed by the bayou, her voice silenced, her identity absorbed? The journal became a terrifying dialogue, a conversation between two distinct personalities, two warring wills. Alara's entries, though increasingly desperate, still clung to a semblance of hope, a desire to escape, to resist. But the darker hand, cold and relentless, documented her slow descent, her gradual surrender, her inevitable transformation. It was a horrifying chronicle of a mind unraveling, of a soul being devoured piece by agonizing piece. The ink seemed to bleed into the paper, the words themselves imbued with a malevolent energy. You've reached the final entry, written entirely in the darker hand. The script almost illegible, a frantic scrawl of despair and triumph. She is ours now. Her voice is the bayou's voice. Her eyes are the bayou's eyes. And soon yours will be too. The words pulsed with a chilling finality, a declaration of victory. You slammed the journal shut, your hands trembling, your heart pounding in your chest. The scent of lavender and old paper was gone, replaced by the pervasive stench of decay, of magnolias, and blood. You looked at the locket, at Aunt Alara's face, and for the first time you saw not just a faded image, but a warning. Her smile, once unsettling, now seemed to hold a hint of tragic resignation. She had tried to warn you, through the map, through the locket, through the very act of leaving this journal behind. But the bayou, it seemed, was too powerful, its hunger too great. It had claimed her, and now it was coming for you. The house, once silent, seemed to hum with a low, resonant energy. The floorboards, though no longer pulsing, felt warm beneath your feet, as if the eye beneath was still watching, still waiting. The whispers, once indistinct, now seemed to form words, faint and chilling, echoing the phrases from the journal. One with the mud. One with the whispers. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The journal, with its two handwritings, was not just a story. It was a prophecy, a terrifying glimpse into your own inevitable future. You stumbled out of the shack, the journal clutched tight in your hand, the locket a cold weight against your chest. The bayou stretched before you, a vast green expanse of water and shadows, its humid breath a constant presence against your skin. The sun, a malevolent eye in the humid sky, beat down on you, but you felt no warmth, only a profound chill that permeated your very being. The whispers followed you, a chorus of unseen voices, echoing the words from the journal, drawing you deeper into the heart of the swamp. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The Bayou had claimed Aunt Alara, and now it was claiming you. And as you walked, you knew with a chilling certainty that your journey into the American horror had only just begun. The letters written in two handwritings had revealed a truth far more terrifying than you could have ever imagined. And there was no escape. Section 8. The Voice Beneath the Crawlspace, the Journal. With its chilling narrative of Aunt Alara's descent, lay open on the rickety table, its pages whispering secrets you wished you hadn't uncovered. The locket, a cold weight against your chest, felt less like a talisman and more like a brand, marking you as the next in line. You were still in the shack, the one that breathed, the one with the eye beneath its floorboards. The sun, a malevolent eye in the humid sky, beat down. But its warmth offered no comfort against the profound chill that had settled deep within your bones. The scent of decay, of magnolias and blood, was now a constant companion. A suffocating perfume that clung to your clothes, to your skin, to your very soul. You knew you had to leave to escape this place that was slowly, insidiously consuming you. But where to go? The bayou stretched out in every direction, a vast green labyrinth that seemed to shift and writhe with a malevolent life of its own. The map, once a guide, now felt like a trap, its shimmering lines drawing you deeper into the heart of the nightmare. You looked at the floorboards, at the faint, almost imperceptible cracks where the phosphorescent green light had seeped through. The eye was gone, but its presence lingered, a palpable weight beneath the shack, a silent, unblinking witness. As you gathered your few belongings, a sound, faint at first, then growing steadily clearer, reached your ears. It was a voice, a whisper emanating from directly beneath the shack, from the very crawl space where the eye had been. It was a low, guttural sound, like dry leaves skittering across pavement, or the gentle lapping of water against unseen banks. It was a voice that spoke of immense age, of profound weariness, of a sorrow so deep it resonated in your very soul, and it was calling to you. You froze, your heart pounding in your chest, a cold dread coiling in your stomach. You had heard whispers before, the indistinct chorus of the bayou, the ancient laments and guttural pronouncements. But this was different. This was a single voice, clear and distinct, speaking directly to you. You knelt, pressing your ear to the floorboards, your breath catching in your throat. The voice grew louder, more insistent, its words forming, slowly, painfully in your mind. "Don't look for them again," it whispered, the words seeping into your consciousness, chilling you to the bone. "They are gone, lost to the mud, lost to the whispers." The voice was raspy, broken, as if it had not spoken in a very long time, or as if speaking caused it immense pain. You seek what cannot be found. You disturb what should remain undisturbed. You tried to speak, to ask who it was, what it wanted, but your voice caught in your throat, a dry, useless sound. The voice continued, its words a slow, deliberate torment. "She came here like you, seeking answers, seeking power. She found only absorption." The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning, a chilling confirmation of the journal's terrifying narrative. She became one with the mud, one with the whispers. Her voice is now our voice. The voice paused, and you could almost feel its presence. A vast, unseen entity shifting beneath the shack, its ancient breath stirring the dust motes in the stale air. "You are next," it whispered, the words a cold caress against your ear. "The bayou calls, it hungers, it will draw you in, piece by agonizing piece. Your voice will fade, your identity will dissolve, you will become one of us." A wave of nausea washed over you, a dizzying sensation that threatened to overwhelm you. You scrambled back, away from the floorboards, away from the voice that spoke of your inevitable doom. But there was nowhere to go. The shack was a prison, the bayou a vast, inescapable maw. The locket, Aunt Alara's locket, felt like a burning coal against your skin, a silent accusation. "She tried to warn you," the voice continued, its tone laced with a strange, melancholic pity. "Through the map, through the locket, through the journal, but you did not listen, could not resist the call. It was true. You had been drawn here, compelled by an unseen force, a dark curiosity that had led you to the very edge of your sanity. The bayou had been calling, and you, an unwilling but inexorable participant, had answered. The others, they are waiting, the voice whispered, its tone growing fainter, as if receding into the depths. The ones who came before? The ones who became part of the song. They yearn for company. They yearn for absorption. The word echoed in your mind, a chilling mantra, a promise of a fate far worse than death. To be absorbed, to lose yourself, to become a voiceless part of the bayou's ancient, terrifying chorus. You stumbled out of the shack, the journal clutched tight, the locket a cold weight against your chest. The bayou stretched before you, a vast green expanse of water and shadows, its humid breath a constant presence against your skin. The sun, a malevolent eye in the humid sky, beat down on you, but you felt no warmth. Only a profound chill that permeated your very being. The whispers followed you, a chorus of unseen voices, echoing the words from the crawlspace, drawing you deeper into the heart of the swamp. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The voice beneath the crawlspace had revealed a truth far more terrifying than you could have ever imagined. And there was no escape. The bayou had claimed Aunt Alara, and now it was claiming you. And as you walked, you knew, with a chilling certainty, that your journey into the American horror had only just begun. The voice beneath the crawlspace had sealed your fate, and there was no escape. Section 9. A lantern that stays lit underwater. The voice beneath the crawlspace had faded, leaving you with a chilling prophecy of absorption, a fate that echoed Aunt Alara's tragic end. You had fled the shack, the journal clutched tight, the locket a cold weight against your chest, seeking refuge from the oppressive presence that clung to the very air. The bayou stretched before you, a vast green labyrinth, its humid breath a constant presence against your skin. The whispers, once a faint chorus, now seemed to form words, indistinct but insistent, drawing you deeper into the heart of the swamp. You walked for what felt like an eternity, the path narrowing, becoming little more than a deer trail, overgrown with tangled vines and thorny bushes. The cypress trees, their gnarled roots reaching into the murky water like skeletal fingers, grew denser, their Spanish moss beards swaying in the imperceptible breeze. The air was thick with the scent of mud and decaying vegetation, a primal aroma that spoke of life and death intertwined. You were alone, truly alone, in the heart of the bayou, surrounded by a silence that was not empty, but filled with 1,000 tiny sounds, 1,000 unseen presences. As twilight bled across the sky, painting the clouds in hues of bruised purple and angry orange, you found yourself at the edge of a wide, dark expanse of water. It was a bayou lake, still and black, reflecting the last vestiges of the dying sun. The map, pulled from your pocket, pulsed with a faint internal light, its shimmer illuminating a small, almost imperceptible symbol on the lake's surface. A flickering flame. You knew, with a chilling certainty, that this was where you were meant to be. The darkness deepened, the moon, a sliver of bone in the inky sky, casting a faint, ghostly light on the water. You fumbled in your bag, pulling out the old, battered lantern you had brought with you, a relic from a forgotten camping trip. Its glass was grimy, its metal tarnished, but with a flick of your thumb, the wick caught, casting a small, flickering circle of light into the oppressive darkness. It was a fragile beacon against the encroaching shadows, small defiance against the vast, consuming blackness of the bayou. You sat on the muddy bank, the lantern casting long, distorted shadows around you, its warmth a small comfort against the growing chill. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, a chorus of unseen voices that seemed to emanate from the water itself, from the depths of the lake. They were not words you could understand, but a jumble of sounds, of sighs and moans, of ancient laments and guttural pronouncements. They swirled around you, a vortex of sound that threatened to overwhelm your senses, to drag you down into the madness of the bayou. Suddenly, a gust of wind, cold and unnatural, swept across the lake, stirring the still water into a frenzy. The lantern perched precariously on the muddy bank, teetered, then toppled, falling with a splash, into the inky blackness of the water. A gasp escaped your lips. Your only source of light, your only comfort, was gone, swallowed by the depths. You plunged your hand into the cold water, desperately searching. But your fingers met only mud and the slick, unseen forms of aquatic plants. Then you saw it. A faint, ethereal glow emanating from beneath the surface of the water. It was the lantern. It hadn't sunk. It was floating, suspended in the murky depths, its flame still burning, a steady, unwavering beacon in the darkness. It cast an eerie, phosphorescent green light on the water, illuminating the swirling currents, the unseen shapes that moved beneath the surface. It was impossible. A flame could not burn underwater, yet there it was, defying all logic, all reason. A cold dread, deeper than any you had ever known, settled over you. This was not a trick of the light, not a hallucination. This was real. The bayou was alive and it was playing with you, twisting the laws of nature, bending reality to its will. The lantern, once a symbol of comfort, had become a terrifying testament to the bayou's power, its ability to defy the natural order. It was a sign, a chilling message from the depths, a confirmation of the ancient, unsettling truths whispered by the old fishermen. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, and for a fleeting moment, you thought you heard your name, whispered from the depths, a cold, wet sound that sent shivers down your spine. The phosphorescent green light of the submerged lantern pulsed, a rhythmic beat that resonated with the pulsing shimmer of the map in your pocket. It was a beacon, drawing you closer, beckoning you to surrender, to become one with the impossible. You reached into the water, your hand trembling, and retrieved the lantern. It was cold to the touch, its glass slick with algae, but the flames still burned, a steady, unwavering beacon. You held it aloft, its eerie green light illuminating the darkness, now revealing the distorted reflections of the cypress trees, their Spanish moss beards swaying like spectral figures in the unnatural glow. The bayou, once a place of natural beauty, had transformed into a landscape of dread, a living nightmare. And you, a helpless participant, were being drawn deeper into its embrace, towards a destination unknown, towards a confrontation with the impossible. As the night deepened and the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting its ghostly light on the water, you continued your journey, the lantern held aloft, its impossible flame illuminating the path. The whispers followed you, a chorus of unseen voices, echoing the words from the crawlspace, drawing you deeper into the heart of the swamp. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The bayou had claimed Aunt Lara, and now it was claiming you. And as you walked, you knew with a chilling certainty that your journey into the American horror had only just begun. The lantern that stayed lit underwater had revealed a truth far more terrifying than you could have ever imagined. And there was no escape. The bayou had sealed your fate. There was no escape. Section 10. Echoes in the cypress roots, the impossible lantern. Its flame still burning brightly underwater had become your constant companion, its eerie green glow illuminating the path deeper into the bayou's embrace. The voice beneath the crawlspace, the two handwritings in the journal, the unseeing townspeople, all had woven a tapestry of dread, each thread pulling you further into the heart of the American horror. The locket, a cold weight against your chest, felt less like a relic and more like a tether, binding you to Aunt Lara's fate, to the bayou's insatiable hunger. The whispers, a constant, indistinct chorus, now seemed to pulse with the rhythm of your own heartbeat, a chilling symphony of absorption. You had been walking for what felt like an eternity, the humid air, a thick, suffocating blanket. The scent of decay and magnolias, a pervasive perfume. The cypress trees, their gnarled roots, twisting and coiling like ancient serpents, grew denser, forming an impenetrable wall of verdant darkness. The Spanish moss, hanging like spectral beards, brushed against your face, a cold, clammy touch that sent shivers down your spine. The ground beneath your feet was soft, yielding a treacherous mix of mud and decaying leaves. Each step a struggle against the bayou's relentless pull. Then you heard it, a sound faint at first, then growing steadily clearer, echoing through the labyrinthine roots of the cypress trees. It was your name, called out. Not in your own voice, but in a voice that was familiar, yet strangely altered. It was deeper, raspier, imbued with an ancient weariness, a profound sorrow. It was your voice, but
Older.
far older than it should be. It was the voice of someone who had seen too much, experienced too much, endured too much. You stopped, your heart pounding in your chest, a cold dread coiling in your stomach. You looked around but saw nothing, only the endless expanse of cypress trees, their twisted forms looming like silent sentinels in the eerie green glow of the lantern. The sound came again, closer this time, echoing from directly ahead, from the very heart of the twisted roots. "Come closer," it whispered, the words a cold caress against your ear. "Don't be afraid. We've been waiting." You hesitated, your rational mind screaming warnings, but the pull was too strong, the allure of the unknown too potent. You followed the sound, pushing through the dense undergrowth, your eyes fixed on the source of the chilling echo. The roots grew thicker, forming a natural archway, a dark, gaping maw that seemed to beckon you deeper into its embrace. The air grew colder, despite the oppressive humidity, and the scent of decay intensified. Mixed with something else, something metallic like old blood. As you stepped through the archway of roots, you found yourself in a small, circular clearing. The ground here was bare, devoid of vegetation, a patch of dark, compacted earth. And in the center, a pool of still, black water, reflecting the inky sky above. The echoes of your name, the voice that was your own, but older, seemed to emanate from the water itself, from the depths of the pool. You knelt, your eyes fixed on the shimmering surface, and saw it. Not a reflection of yourself, but a distorted image, a spectral figure shimmering in the depths. It was you, but aged, withered, your eyes hollow, your skin stretched taut over skeletal bones. And from its lips, your own voice, older, raspier, whispered, "You're here, finally." A wave of nausea washed over you, a dizzying sensation that threatened to overwhelm you. This was not a reflection. It was a premonition, a terrifying glimpse into your own inevitable future. The bayou was not just consuming you, it was transforming you, slowly, insidiously, into something else, something ancient and withered. Something that belonged to the mud, to the whispers. The locket, Aunt Elira's locket, felt like a burning coal against your skin, a silent accusation. She had seen this, had known this, had perhaps even become this. The echoes grew louder, a chorus of voices, all your own, all older, all filled with a profound sorrow. They swirled around you, a vortex of sound that threatened to overwhelm your senses, to drag you down into the madness of the bayou. "Join us," they whispered, the words seeping into your consciousness, chilling you to the bone. "Become one with the mud, one with the whispers. Your voice will fade. Your identity will dissolve. You will become us." You scrambled back, away from the pool, away from the terrifying reflection, away from the echoes that spoke of your inevitable doom. But there was nowhere to go. The clearing was a trap, the cypress roots a cage, the bayou a vast, inescapable maw. The impossible lantern, its green flame still burning, seemed to mock your terror, its light illuminating the path to your own absorption. "Resistance is futile," the echoes whispered, their voices growing stronger, more insistent. "The bayou claims all. It hungers. It will draw you in, piece by agonizing piece." You felt a strange, magnetic pull, a morbid fascination that drew you closer to the pool, despite your terror. It was as if the bayou was calling to you, beckoning you to surrender, to become a part of its ancient, unsettling tapestry. The echoes of your own voice, older and wiser, seemed to urge you on to embrace your fate. As the echoes reached a crescendo, the water in the pool began to churn, a slow, viscous swirl that pulled at your very soul. The spectral figure in the depths grew clearer, its eyes, your eyes, fixed on you with an unsettling intensity. You felt your own voice begin to waver, to crack, to lose its familiar timbre, replaced by the deeper, raspier tones of the echoes. Your identity, your very being, felt as if it were being stretched, pulled thin, dissolving into the humid air. You stumbled out of the clearing, the journal clutched tight, the locket a cold weight against your chest. The bayou stretched before you, a vast green expanse of water and shadows, His humid breath a constant presence against your skin. The sun, a malevolent eye in the humid sky, beat down on you, but you felt no warmth, only a profound chill that permeated your very being. The whispers followed you, a chorus of unseen voices, echoing the words from the cypress roots, drawing you deeper into the heart of the swamp. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The bayou had claimed Aunt Alara, and now it was claiming you. And as you walked, you knew, with a chilling certainty, that your journey into the American horror had only just begun. The echoes in the cypress roots had revealed a truth far more terrifying than you could have ever imagined, and there was no escape. The bayou had sealed your fate, and there was no escape. Section 11. The church that holds no reflection, the echoes in the cypress roots had faded, leaving you with a chilling premonition of your own absorption. A terrifying glimpse into a future where your voice would be lost, your identity dissolved into the bayou's ancient chorus. The impossible lantern, its green flame still burning underwater, had become a constant, unsettling reminder of the twisted reality you now inhabited. The locket, a cold weight against your chest, felt less like a protective charm and more like a brand, marking you as the next sacrifice. The whispers, a constant, indistinct chorus, now seemed to pulse with the rhythm of your own frantic heartbeat, a chilling symphony of impending doom. You had stumbled through the dense undergrowth, driven by an instinct to escape, to find some semblance of sanity in this verdant nightmare. The humid air, thick with the scent of decay and magnolias, clung to you like a shroud. The cypress trees, their gnarled roots twisting and coiling like ancient serpents, loomed over you, their Spanish moss beards swaying like spectral figures in the eerie green glow of the lantern. The ground beneath your feet was soft, yielding a treacherous mix of mud and decaying leaves, each step a struggle against the bayou's relentless pull. Then, through a break in the dense foliage, you saw it. A structure that seemed utterly out of place in this wild, untamed landscape. It was a church, not a grand, imposing cathedral, but a small, dilapidated wooden building, its paint peeling, its steeple leaning precariously. Its windows, however, were what truly caught your eye. They were not broken or boarded up, but covered with thick, dark planks, nailed shut as if to keep something in, or perhaps to keep something out. A faint, almost imperceptible scent of incense and old wood emanated from it, a stark contrast to the pervasive stench of the bayou. You approached cautiously, your heart pounding in your chest. The ground around the church was strangely barren, void of the usual bayou vegetation, as if the very earth recoiled from its presence. The air here was still heavy, almost suffocating. It's a silence that was not empty, but filled with a profound sense of ancient sorrow. You pushed open the warped wooden door, its hinges groaning a mournful welcome in the imperceptible breeze. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint cloying scent of decay, a smell that was becoming increasingly familiar. The single room was sparsely furnished, a few overturned pews, broken altar, and a crucifix hanging crookedly on the far wall, its wooden figure chipped and faded. The light from your lantern struggled to penetrate the oppressive darkness, casting dancing shadows on the walls. But it was the windows that truly held your attention. You walked towards one, your hand trembling, and peered through a crack in the boarded-up planks. You saw the bayou outside, the cypress trees, the Spanish moss, the murky water. But you did not see your own reflection. Not even a faint outline. Nothing. A cold dread deeper than any you had ever known settled over you. You tried another window, then another, but the result was the same. The glass, though seemingly clear, offered no reflection. It was as if you were invisible, a ghost in your own body. You pressed your hand against the cold glass and felt a strange, vibrating hum, a low, resonant thrum that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the church. It was the sound of something vast and ancient, something that had been sleeping within these walls for a very long time and was now slowly, deliberately awakening. The whispers, too, returned, a cacophony of indistinct voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls, from the very air itself. They were not words you could understand, but a jumble of sounds, of sighs and moans, of ancient laments and guttural pronouncements. They swirled around you, a vortex of sound that threatened to overwhelm your senses, to drag you down into the madness of the bayou. And then, a single voice, clear and distinct, rose above the chorus. Echoing the words from the crawl space, from the journal, from the echoes in the cypress roots. You are next. You stumbled back, away from the windows, away from the voice that spoke of your inevitable doom. But there was nowhere to go. The church was a trap, its boarded-up windows a prison, the bayou a vast, inescapable maw. The locket, Aunt Ilares's locket, felt like a burning coal against your skin, a silent accusation. She had been here, you knew, had seen this, had perhaps even become this. As you stood in the center of the church, the impossible lantern casting its eerie green glow, you noticed something else. On the floor near the altar, a faint, almost imperceptible stain. It was dark, almost black, and seemed to spread like a slow-growing fungus across the worn wood. You knelt, your fingers tracing its outline, and felt a strange, sticky residue. It was old, very old, but still wet. And as you touched it, a jolt, cold and electric, shot through your fingertips. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with the scent of decay, of magnolias and blood. The whispers intensified, and for a fleeting moment you thought you heard a name, whispered from the depths, a cold, wet sound that sent shivers down your spine. Your name. The church, once a symbol of solace, had transformed into a place of profound dread, a living nightmare. And you, a helpless participant, were being drawn deeper into its embrace. Towards a destination unknown, towards a confrontation with the impossible. As the night deepened, and the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting its ghostly light on the boarded-up windows. You continued your journey, the lantern held aloft, its impossible flame illuminating the path. The whispers followed you, a chorus of unseen voices, echoing the words from the church, drawing you deeper into the heart of the swamp. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The bayou had claimed Aunt Ilara, and now it was claiming you. And as you walked, you knew with a chilling certainty that your journey into the American horror had only just begun. The church that held no reflection had revealed a truth far more terrifying than you could have ever imagined. And there was no escape. The bayou had sealed your fate. And there was no escape. Section 12. Offerings on the water that come back wet, the church that held no reflection had solidified your terror.
Out.
A chilling testament to the bayou's ability to twist reality, to erase your very presence. The impossible lantern, its green flames still burning underwater, had become a mocking beacon, illuminating a path deeper into the heart of the American horror. The locket, a cold weight against your chest, felt less like a relic and more like a brand, marking you as the next sacrifice. The whispers, a constant, indistinct chorus, now seemed to pulse with the rhythm of your own frantic heartbeat, a chilling symphony of impending doom. You had stumbled out of the church, the scent of decay and old incense clinging to your clothes, seeking refuge from the oppressive presence that clung to the very air. The bayou stretched before you, a vast green labyrinth, its humid breath a constant presence against your skin. The cypress trees, their gnarled roots twisting and coiling like ancient serpents, loomed over you, their Spanish moss beards swaying like spectral figures in the eerie green glow of the lantern. The ground beneath your feet was soft, yielding a treacherous mix of mud and decaying leaves. Each step, a struggle against the bayou's relentless pull. As you wandered deeper, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. And for the first time, you began to discern faint patterns, rhythmic chants, almost like a song. It was a mournful melody, a lament, sung in a language you didn't understand, yet its sorrow resonated deep within your soul. You followed the sound, drawn by an unseen force, until you reached a small hidden cove. The water here was still almost black, reflecting the inky sky above. And in the center of the cove, a collection of small, makeshift rafts, each adorned with strange, unsettling offerings. Dried flowers, animal bones, tarnished coins, and small, crudely carved wooden figures. It was a ritual, you realized, a dark ceremony performed by the locals, a desperate attempt to appease the bayou. You remembered the old woman in the general store, her cryptic warning, The bayou takes what it wants, and it always wants more. And the fisherman, his words echoing in your mind, they are not always kind, these voices. They can lure you, deceive you, lead you astray. This was their offering, their sacrifice, a desperate plea for mercy from the insatiable hunger of the bayou. You watched, hidden by the dense foliage, as a figure emerged from the shadows, a local, their face obscured by the dim light. They placed a small, woven basket onto one of the rafts, pushing it gently into the water. The raft drifted slowly towards the center of the cove, then stopped, hovering motionless on the black surface. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time seemed to lose all meaning in the heart of the bayou. The moon, a sliver of bone in the inky sky, cast a faint, ghostly light on the scene. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, a chorus of unseen voices that seemed to emanate from the water itself, from the depths of the cove. The mournful melody intensified, a chilling symphony that spoke of ancient secrets, of forgotten tragedies, of things that lurked just beyond the veil of perception. Then, slowly, imperceptibly, the raft began to move. Not drifting, but pulling back, towards the shore. You watched, your heart pounding in your chest, as it nudged against the muddy bank, directly in front of where you were hidden. The figure emerged from the shadows again, their movements slow and deliberate, and retrieved the basket. But it was different. The dried flowers were soaked, their petals clinging to the woven reeds. The animal bones were rearranged, forming a grotesque, unfamiliar pattern. The tarnished coins were gone, replaced by small, smooth stones, each one wet and cold to the touch. And the crudely carved wooden figures, they were facing inward, their blank eyes fixed on the center of the basket, as if witnessing some unseen horror. A cold dread, deeper than any you had ever known, settled over you. The bayou had accepted the offering, but it had returned it, altered, rearranged, a chilling message from the depths. It was a sign, a terrifying confirmation of its sentience, its malevolent will. It was playing with them, with you, twisting their desperate pleas into a macabre game. The whispers intensified, and for a fleeting moment, you thought you heard a name, whispered from the depths, a cold, wet sound that sent shivers down your spine. Your name. The figure, their face still obscured, turned towards you, their head tilted, as if listening. You froze, your breath catching in your throat. Had they seen you? Had the bayou revealed your presence? They stood there for a long moment, then, slowly, deliberately, placed the basket back onto the raft, pushing it gently into the water. This time, the raft did not drift. It sank slowly, silently into the black depths, taking the altered offering with it. The ripples spread across the surface, then vanished, leaving the water still and black once more. You stumbled back, away from the cove, away from the chilling ritual, away from the terrifying confirmation of the bayou's power. But there was nowhere to go. The bayou was a vast, inescapable maw, its hunger insatiable. The locket, Aunt Ilara's locket, felt like a burning coal against your skin, a silent accusation. She had been here, you knew, had seen this, had perhaps even participated in this. As the night deepened and the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting its ghostly light on the water, you continued your journey. The lantern held aloft, its impossible flame illuminating the path. The whispers followed you, a chorus of unseen voices, echoing the words from the cove, drawing you deeper into the heart of the swamp. You were no longer just a visitor, you were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The bayou had claimed Aunt Ilara, and now it was claiming you. And as you walked, you knew, with a chilling certainty, that your journey into the American horror had only just begun. The offerings on the water that came back wet had revealed a truth far more terrifying than you could have ever imagined. And there was no escape. The bayou had sealed your fate, and there was no escape. Section 13. What the alligators wait for the offerings on the water that came back wet had solidified your terror. A chilling testament to the bayou's malevolent will, its insatiable hunger, the impossible lantern, its green flame still burning underwater, become a mocking beacon, illuminating a path deeper into the heart of the American horror. The locket, a cold weight against your chest, felt less like a relic and more like a brand, marking you as the next sacrifice. The whispers, a constant, indistinct chorus, now seemed to pulse with the rhythm of your own frantic heartbeat, a chilling symphony of impending doom. You had stumbled away from the hidden cove, the image of the altered offerings seared into your mind. The bayou stretched before you, a vast green labyrinth, its humid breath a constant presence against your skin. The cypress trees, their gnarled roots twisting and coiling like ancient serpents, loomed over you, their Spanish moss beards swaying like spectral figures in the eerie green glow of the lantern. The ground beneath your feet was soft, yielding a treacherous mix of mud and decaying leaves. Each step, a struggle against the bayou's relentless pull. As you walked, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, and for the first time, it was a sound you recognized, sound that had filled you with primal fear since your arrival. The low, resonant growl of an alligator, but this was different. It wasn't a single growl, or even a few. It was a chorus, a symphony of guttural sounds, a collective murmur that seemed to speak of anticipation, of hunger, of a patient, ancient waiting. You followed the sound, drawn by an unseen force, until you reached a wide, murky expanse of water. The air here was thick with the scent of stagnant water and something else, something musky and reptilian. And then you saw them, dozens, perhaps hundreds of alligators. They were not scattered as they usually were, but gathered, forming a shape, a vast dark semicircle that stretched across the water. Their eyes, glowing red in the lantern's eerie green light, were fixed on a single point in the center of the semicircle, a small, almost imperceptible disturbance on the surface of the water. They were waiting for something, or someone. A cold dread, deeper than any you had ever known, settled over you. This was not a natural gathering. This was a deliberate formation, a silent, predatory vigil. The alligators, ancient and primal, were acting with a collective purpose, a chilling intelligence that defied their reptilian nature. They were guarding something, or perhaps waiting for something to emerge. The whispers intensified, and for a fleeting moment, you thought you heard a name, whispered from the depths, a cold. You watched, hidden by the dense foliage, as the disturbance in the water grew. A faint phosphorescent green light began to emanate from the center of the semicircle, mirroring the glow of your lantern. It was the same light you had seen beneath the floorboards of the shack. The same light that had seeped through the cracks in the church. And the alligators, their red eyes fixed on the glowing disturbance, seemed to hum with a low, resonant energy, their guttural growls a chilling chorus of anticipation. Slowly, imperceptibly, a shape began to emerge from the glowing water. It was vast, indistinct, shimmering with the same phosphorescent green light. It was not a creature you recognized, not an animal from any natural history book. It was something else, something ancient and primordial, something that belonged to a time before time. And the alligators, their bodies, almost touching, formed a living barrier around it, a silent, unblinking guard. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, and for a fleeting moment you thought you heard words. Faint and chilling, echoing the phrases from the journal. She is ours now. Her voice is the bayou's voice. Her eyes are the bayou's eyes. And soon yours will be too. The words pulsed with a chilling finality, a declaration of victory. The alligators, as if in response, let out a collective guttural roar. A sound that vibrated through the very air, through the very ground beneath your feet. You stumbled back, away from the water, away from the terrifying spectacle, away from the chilling confirmation of the bayou's power. But there was nowhere to go. The bayou was a vast, inescapable maw, its hunger insatiable. The locket, Antalara's locket, felt like a burning coal against your skin, a silent accusation. As the night deepened and the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting its ghostly light on the water, the whispers followed you, a chorus of unseen voices, echoing the words from the alligators, drawing you deeper into the heart of the swamp. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The bayou had claimed Antalara, and now it was claiming you. And as you walked, you knew with a chilling certainty that your journey into the American horror had only just begun. What the alligators waited for had revealed a truth far more terrifying than you could have ever imagined, and there was no escape. The bayou had sealed your fate, and there was no escape. Section 14. The ground that breathes back. What the alligators waited for had revealed a truth far more terrifying than you could have ever imagined. The bayou was not merely a place, but a sentient, malevolent entity capable of bending reality to its will, and its hunger was insatiable. Impossible lantern, its green flame still burning underwater, had become a mocking beacon, illuminating a path deeper into the heart of the American horror. The locket, a cold weight against your chest, felt less like a relic and more like a brand, marking you as the next sacrifice. The whispers, a constant, indistinct chorus, now seemed to pulse with the rhythm of your own frantic heartbeat, a chilling symphony of impending doom. You had stumbled away from the alligator gathering, the image of the shimmering entity seared into your mind, seeking refuge from the oppressive presence that clung to the very air. The bayou stretched before you, a vast green labyrinth, its humid breath a constant presence against your skin. The cypress trees, their gnarled roots twisting and coiling like ancient serpents, loomed over you, their Spanish moss beards swaying like spectral figures in the eerie green glow of the lantern. The ground beneath your feet was soft, yielding a treacherous mix of mud and decaying leaves. Each step, a struggle against the bayou's relentless pull. As you walked, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, and for the first time, you began to discern a pattern, a low, guttural murmur that seemed to emanate from the very earth beneath your feet. It was a sound you recognized, a sound that had filled you with primal fear since your arrival. The rhythmic thumping, it's the sound of footsteps where the water was deepest, but this was different. It wasn't just beneath the water, it was beneath the ground, a vast, unseen presence stirring in the very soil of the bayou. It was a sound that spoke of immense age, a profound weariness, of a sorrow so deep it resonated in your very soul. You followed the sound, drawn by an unseen force, until you reached a clearing. The air here was thick with the scent of stagnant water and something else, something earthy and ancient. The ground in the clearing was strangely soft, almost spongy, and as you stepped onto it, your foot sank deeper than it should have. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the earth, a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through your entire body. It was the sound of something vast and ancient, something that had been sleeping beneath the ground for a very long time, and was now, slowly, deliberately, awakening. A cold dread, deeper than any you had ever known, settled over you. This was not just soft mud. This was something else, something alive. The ground beneath your feet seemed to rise and fall with a slow, deliberate rhythm, like a vast, unseen chest breathing. You tried to pull your foot free, but it was stuck, held fast by the yielding earth. The whispers intensified, and for a fleeting moment, you thought you heard a name, whispered from the depths, a cold, wet sound that sent shivers down your spine. Your name. Suddenly the ground gave way, not with a crash, but with a soft, sucking sound, like a giant sigh. You plunged downwards, not into water, but into a hollow chamber, a vast, dark cavern beneath the earth.
Ow.
The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something else. Something sweet and cloying, like decaying magnolias, and breath. A warm, moist breath, exhaling directly into your face. It was the breath of the ground, the breath of the bayou itself. You landed softly on a bed of what felt like damp, compacted earth, the lantern still clutched in your hand, its impossible green flame casting dancing shadows on the walls of the chamber. The space was enormous, far larger than you could have imagined, its ceiling lost in the inky blackness above. The walls were not rock, but a strange viscous substance, pulsing with a faint phosphorescent green light, mirroring the glow of your lantern. It was the same light you had seen beneath the floorboards of the shack, the same light that had seeped through the cracks in the church, the same light that had emanated from the entity guarded by the alligators. It was the light of the bayou, the light of its ancient, malevolent heart. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, and for a fleeting moment, you thought you heard words, faint and chilling, echoing the phrases from the journal. She is ours now. Her voice is the bayou's voice. Her eyes are the bayou's eyes. And soon yours will be too. The words pulsed with a chilling finality, a declaration of victory. The ground beneath you, the walls around you, seemed to hum with a low, resonant energy, a collective murmur that spoke of anticipation, of hunger, of a patient, ancient waiting. You tried to move to find an escape, but your limbs felt heavy, as if rooted to the damp earth. The air in the chamber grew thick, suffocating, filled with the sweet, cloying scent of decay and breath. You felt a strange magnetic pull, a morbid fascination that drew you deeper into the embrace of the chamber, despite your terror. It was as if the ground was calling to you, beckoning you to surrender, to become a part of its ancient, unsettling tapestry. As the phosphorescent green light pulsed, and the warm, moist breath exhaled into your face, you saw them, not eyes, but impressions, vast dark depressions in the viscous walls, like ancient, unblinking eyes. They were everywhere, watching, waiting, absorbing, and in the center of the chamber, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer, like a drop of water on oil. It was the map. It had led you here, to the very heart of the bayou, to the source of its ancient power, to the place where it truly breathed. The whispers reached a fever pitch, a chorus of ancient voices screaming in your ears. You felt your own voice begin to waver, to crack, to lose its familiar timbre, replaced by the deeper, raspier tones of the echoes. Your identity, your very being, felt as if it were being stretched, pulled thin, dissolving into the humid air. The locket, Antalara's locket, felt like a burning coal against your skin, a silent accusation. She had been here, you knew, had seen this, had perhaps even become this. Then, a sudden jolt. The ground beneath you shuddered, and you were propelled upwards, out of the hollow chamber, back into the humid air of the bayou. You landed with a gasp, disoriented, your body aching. The clearing was still there, the soft, spongy ground, but the opening to the chamber was gone, vanished, as if it had never existed. The whispers had faded, replaced by an eerie silence, but you knew it wasn't over. The ground had breathed back, and it had marked you. You were no longer just a visitor, you were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The bayou had claimed Aunt Alara, and now it was claiming you. And as you walked, you knew, with a chilling certainty, that your journey into the American horror had only just begun. The ground that breathed back had revealed a truth far more terrifying than you could have ever imagined. There was no escape. The bayou had sealed your fate. There was no escape. Section 15. You leave, but the bayou follows the ground that breathed back had expelled you, leaving you disoriented, your body aching, but undeniably alive. Impossible lantern, its green flame still burning underwater, had become a chilling souvenir, a tangible link to the horrors you had witnessed. The locket, a cold weight against your chest, felt less like a brand, and more like a permanent scar, a mark of your unwilling initiation into the bayou's ancient secrets. The whispers, a constant indistinct chorus, now seemed to pulse with the rhythm of your own frantic heartbeat, a chilling symphony of a fate you could not escape. You had stumbled out of the bayou, driven by a primal urge to flee, to return to the world you once knew, a world where reality was stable, where the ground didn't breathe, and where reflections appeared in windows. The humid air, thick with the scent of decay and magnolias, clung to you like a shroud, a constant reminder of the place you had left behind. The cypress trees, their gnarled roots twisting and coiling like ancient serpents, faded into the distance, replaced by the familiar, if still dilapidated, houses of the town. The unseeing locals, their faces impassive, seemed to blur into the background, their pretense of your non-existence now a comforting illusion. You found your car, miraculously still there, covered in a fine layer of dust and Spanish moss. The engine roared to life with a defiant sound, a promise of escape. You drove, the miles blurring into a desperate attempt to outrun the bayou, to leave its horrors behind. The landscape slowly shifted, the marshlands giving way to fields, then to towns, then to cities. Each mile was a victory, a step closer to normalcy, to a life untouched by ancient whispers and breathing earth. But the bayou, you soon discovered, was not so easily left behind. It had seeped into your very being, a slow, insidious poison that permeated every aspect of your existence. The whispers once confined to the swamp now followed you, a faint, almost imperceptible murmur that seemed to emanate from the very air around you. From the rustling of leaves, from the hum of traffic, from the silence of your own home. They were not words you could understand, but a jumble of sounds, of sighs and moans, of ancient laments and guttural pronouncements. They swirled around you, a vortex of sound that threatened to overwhelm your senses, to drag you back into the madness. The scent of decay, of magnolias and blood, was now a constant companion. A phantom presence that clung to your clothes, to your skin, to your very soul. You would catch a whiff of it in the most unexpected places. In a crowded supermarket, on a busy street, in the quiet solitude of your own bedroom. It was a smell that was both alien and strangely familiar, a constant reminder of the place you had escaped and the place that still clung to you. And then there were the damp footprints. You would find them inexplicably in your home. On the clean, dry floor of your living room, on the pristine tiles of your bathroom, on the plush carpet of your bedroom. They were faint, almost invisible, but undeniably there. The shape of a bare foot, elongated, with too many toes, leaving a trail of cold, wet mud. You would clean them, scrub them away, but they would reappear silently, mysteriously. A chilling testament to the Bayou's relentless pursuit. It was following you not just in your mind, but in the very fabric of your reality. Sleep, when it came, was a fitful, restless affair. The dreams were vivid, terrifying, filled with the green glow of the impossible lantern, the unblinking eye beneath the floorboards, the spectral reflection in the church. Window the alligators forming their silent guard, and the vast breathing chamber beneath the earth. You would wake in a cold sweat, the whispers still echoing in your ears, the scent of decay still clinging to your nostrils, the phantom dampness of the bayou still on your skin. You tried to talk about it, to share your terrifying experiences with friends, with family, with anyone who would listen. But their eyes, like those of the townspeople, would slide past, their expressions blank, their words dismissive. They saw you, you knew they did, but their recognition was fleeting. Their attention already drifting, as if you were already fading, dissolving into the humid air. You were transparent, a ghost in your own life, haunted by a reality no one else could perceive. The locket, Aunt Alara's locket, remained a cold weight against your chest.
Yes.
You had tried to remove it, to throw it away, to sever the last tangible link to the bayou, but it would not come off. It was fused to your skin, a permanent part of you. A chilling reminder of the woman who had gone before, the woman who had been absorbed. Her faded image, her dark, knowing eyes seemed to watch you, a silent testament to your shared fate. You were home, but the bayou was with you. It was in the whispers that followed you, in the scent that clung to you, in the damp footprints that appeared in your house, in the dreams that tormented your sleep. You were no longer just a visitor. You were a part of it, woven into its ancient tapestry. The bayou had claimed Aunt Alara, and now it had claimed you. And as you walked through your familiar world, a world that now felt alien and hollow, you knew with a chilling certainty that your journey into the American horror had only just begun. You had left, but the bayou followed, and there was no escape. Not now, not ever.